Hi everyone, I'm Jen, and I own a veterinary technician relief business.
And I'm Michelle. I own a mobile veterinary technician business.
And you are listening to Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing and meeting with credentialed technicians who have created their own path with business ownership within the veterinary space.
Our goal is to help inspire burnt out vet techs before they leave the industry altogether through our stories and the stories of other veterinary technician business owners. Hey, everybody, this is Jen and Michelle. While most of our episodes are going to be revolving around mobile vet techs, relief techs, interviewing techs, we spend a lot of time in the social media groups, all of the Facebook community tech groups, and we can't deny that we hear stuff, we see stuff, and it gets us talking and it gets us thinking. A lot of it is, how does this relate to the relief world? A lot of it is, how does this relate to the mobile world? And even if it doesn't, a lot of these things still need to be addressed. We really need to take a look into them and see how they're affecting the veterinary community as a whole. And it seems like maybe every other month or so, we see a new flash come through social media. A lot of techs and assistants will debate about it. And me and Jen felt, from our different perspectives of being non-traditional roles in the veterinary industry, we wanted to get our opinion out there too. Me and her, we chat about this, and we feel it's something that we kind of want to discuss, almost like just gabbing with your girlfriend, spilling the tea, just talking the drama, shooting the shit. Like, why not throw these bonus episodes out there every now and then? Jen, what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I think that it's really important that we can't ignore all of the things that are going on in our field, and everybody has an opinion about something. And some of these opinions are really controversial in the field right now, but I think that whether they're controversial or not, they need to be discussed. It's important that we keep a dialogue on it and that we have all of these different opinions and these different perspectives, and they need to be talked about, because if we really want the vet field to change, and a lot of people keep complaining that the veterinary field is not either how it used to be or it's getting worse. I believe it's because we just keep shoving things under the rug and we're not talking about it. And if we do start talking about it and people start disagreeing and people's feelings get hurt, then it just shuts the conversation down. And that's absolutely not okay. We cannot be shutting the conversation down. We need to be having these conversations.
Yes, absolutely. And while we can all collectively to sometimes agree to disagree, this is almost political at some point at some of these things that we've seen go around. And I know there's been a few posts in the past few months where me and Jen have been like, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? And so that's when we decided, hey, we're going to, do some bonus episodes. Jen came up the idea. I thought it was fantastic. And something came across my inbox today. And I texted Jen, and almost on a fly, we're doing this. Like, we didn't have any prep time. We didn't write anything down. Just like pure raw, like what our thoughts are on this, because something was brought to my attention today. And I'm like, Jen, what do you think? And she was like, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Let's talk about it.
So earlier today, I actually got a DM from a vet tech in a different part of the country. She is a mobile vet tech, but she also works at a clinic still as well. And she was like, hey, Michelle, did you see this? And why I'm not going to name the public figure who wrote this piece, it had shaken up a lot of emotions with a lot of technicians and assistants, good and bad. And to me, I had my own thoughts about it, and she had her own thoughts about it. And the part that got me into the post, which has now been deleted, was the fact that it seemed like the veterinary technicians who were seeking out community groups, vet tech community groups, for support were almost being gaslit in a way. And the person who wrote this post is a DVM. They're a very intelligent, very great DVM. I like this DVM. They're very, very well known, very positive energy. But this post did not sit well with a lot of technicians. I looked over it, and the part that got me the most was in this letter that they had posted online, which has now been deleted. Their perception is that people spending time online may believe that our jobs are becoming uniformly more unpleasant and unfair. My worry is that perception may be leading to people to believe that everyone's jobs are worse than they are, thus creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of of dissatisfaction. So I didn't have a chance to go through the comment section before the post was deleted. I got a screenshot from the technician who sent it to me. And what she said kind of shook me to the core a little bit, which is why I wanted to bring it up. She had mentioned in there that she understood the intent, but this kind of messaging can come across as gaslighting, which I kind of felt gaslit as well. As I've been in those tech groups and I see it as well. That it can come off as gaslighting for those of us actually struggling in the field, framing dissatisfaction as simply a mindset issue, dismissal, the very real systematic problem that veterinary professionals face every day: burnout, understaffing, toxic workplaces, and compassion fatigue, to name a few. Telling people to just change their perspective ignores the fact that many are advocating for meaningful change because they want to stay in this profession, which is what me and Jen are doing, right? We're trying to impact meaningful change.
Right.
They just can't thrive in it as is. We need support, not just positivity. Signed, a vet tech who went solo because clinics are toxic AF.
Yeah. There it is right there. And we also have to think about that perspective of, okay, first of all, is he talking about technicians or is he talking about all veterinary professionals?
Good point.
So I don't think that was addressed. I think that he was talking about veterinary staff as a whole. Possibly. I read it. So I feel like the letter was a little bit vague.
Yes, it was.
As far as that goes, because one of our listeners just wrote us, as far as we're talking about specifically technicians and how technicians feel, and technicians feel burnout and mental health. And obviously we have all of these problems, but nobody's showing us the tools or giving us the tools to figure out these problems. So I do have to say, I want to address that a little bit, because I know that we had talked about this in one of our previous episodes with Jacqueline, where she did say there's that gray area a little bit of sometimes we have to look at ourselves and be accountable for ourselves and see how much of it is the clinic is the problem and how much of it is that maybe we are a little bit of the problem. I think there are a lot of people out there who think that they're really good workers and who think that they're doing just fine, but from an outside perspective, maybe their coworkers don't think that, but they're not telling them that either. So people can't be self-accountable and people can't change because they don't know that maybe they need to change. And I think that's a little bit of it as well. So it's all a very gray area. If you are unhappy in the veterinary field, then there are things and tools that you can do to change that. The problem is how much effort are you willing to give in order to make sure that you can change those things? Yes, there are toxic clinics out there. I've worked in toxic clinics. But then the next step is if you work in that toxic clinic, what can you do to change that? You can leave.
Yep.
And because there are other clinics out there that aren't toxic. If you work at maybe 3 out of 5 clinics, maybe 3 of them are toxic, maybe 2 of them aren't.
Yeah.
Those are all, there's so much to this topic. It is a giant gray area. It's just hard. It's hard.
It is. It's very hard. And to all those points too, I've seen a couple of those posts in those vet tech groups. And again, this is just assuming that this person who wrote this letter is going strictly for vet techs and not the industry as a whole. I have seen a lot of times that a vet tech will post in there and been like, I've worked at 5 clinics. They're all terrible. And even myself, I start to look at it and be like, well, what's the common denominator here? I think a lot of self-reflection. I think a lot of open communication with your management and with your coworkers is what a lot of us need to do. I know myself towards the end of my career, I realized that I would take everything personally.
Mhm.
And now I have I would say a pretty thick wall. But in the beginning, I would get emotional if something went down that was a business decision, whether it involved me or not. But these community rooms that I believe the author is addressing here, a lot of us use that as a place to vent. A lot of us use it as a place that I can't tell my coworkers, but you guys will understand.
Yeah.
And then they get support from people who've been like, yes, girl, I've been in your shoes. Trust me. And that's what those groups are made for. And
Yeah.
at the same time, misery loves company. That's why I call my
Yes.
best friend to complain about something, and then she'll complain about something to me. We do that. That's almost like a form of therapy, is getting out and having these discussions. So I don't think necessarily that these rooms are creating a negative space within the industry. I think it's helping technicians and assistants come together and realize there's some shit going on. What can I do? I need other people's help who are not in my clinic, who don't have a biased opinion. And if I'm being quite honest, I'm so glad those rooms exist, because I would not have met Jen. I would not have started the Unattached Vet Tech group, and we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those vet tech groups. So to say that they're creating a toxic environment, I think is a little far-fetched. I think it's creating an environment where we feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Although I do see a lot of, I mean, when you look at all of our vet tech groups and you read a post, I would say, gosh, maybe 70%, 80% are people talking about toxicity in their clinic, or people saying that they're unhappy, or people who say that they want to leave vet med and they can't do it anymore. And that's hard, because when we are, and I'm going to admit here, I have been a part of those groups. I'm going to try really hard not to say any of them, but I think we're all pretty much a part of all of them.
Yeah.
There's not that many, but I have had to unfollow. Like, I'm still a part of the group, but I don't want it posting up on my main feed anymore, because I can't. Because it's like when I'm out and I'm having a good time and I'm away from work, and then all of a sudden I read a post that somebody posted about something specific, or sometimes that's just hard, and then it gets my mind going, and then I can't stop thinking about it, and then my day's almost just ruined, because I'm so passionate about vet med, and I want to help, or I have an opinion about it, but now instead of me enjoying my day off, here I am thinking about vet med again. So I think that's another thing about boundaries, right? I do understand the support part of it, and I get it. And a lot of girls on there are so, so supportive.
Yes. Most of
But
them.
there is a lot of negativity on those online forums. And to say that it's just because of our mindset is definitely not true. And again, something that me and Michelle had talked about too is who is writing the article and what is their perspective in vet med. Very well-known figure, business owner, very well respected, probably, and I'm not going to make an assumption here, but we were thinking as far as how we are with being business owners, we're not able to spend a lot of our time in the clinical field as much as we used to with everything else that we have going on. So, is this figure also spending less time on the clinical floor? And this figure is also a doctor. So that perspective is already different in and of itself, right? Because DVMs get paid more than we do. They have way more respect than we do. DVMs have a standard as far as their licensing is concerned. They deal with the burnout and the mental health, and they deal with a lot of the same things, but they get paid way more than we do.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with those things, and most of us can hardly even afford our bills with just working one job, where we have to work multiple jobs just to even survive in this field. And then on top of that, we're also getting bothered by some of these clinics because they're upset that we have to have a side hustle, or they're upset that we have to work at another veterinary clinic and that it's taking time away from them, or it's competition, or blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it comes back to, well, you need to pay us more.
Yeah, they do.
So again, this letter is so, so vague. And I appreciate that it brought up some dialogue and that it brought up some perspective. And I had told Michelle I'm a little disappointed that it was deleted because obviously it was bringing up perspectives. Whether those perspectives are negative or positive, I think that it's important that we create a dialogue and that we talk about these things and, we don't just shut it down because people don't agree necessarily. And that's also going to be really, really important to me that we need to hear everybody's perspectives. And obviously, a lot of people had opinions. Were there any other comments that you saw on that particular post that
I did. So there was one that was in the favor to it. So the person who had sent me the message, she had felt like she had been gaslit, that her feelings were invalidated. But as I was looking at the screenshot, again, that post is gone. I did notice another comment on there that was in support. And I will agree to support the post to an extent. And that extent is that a lot of times you can manifest your energy, and it does take one bad apple to ruin the bunch.
right?
It does. So that, with all that in mind, there was another person who wrote, I was gaslit for years thinking that when I came to the rough realization that it wasn't true, it was a lot harder to adjust and accept. I think in the end, it only made me more negative thinking. I think there needs to be a good balance. And I kind of agreed with her on that one. There needs to be a balance as well.
Right. Right. Of what can we do? Because I know it makes a huge difference to me when I walk onto the floor and people are like, hey, hi, Jen. It's a great day, which I mean, obviously it can't always be a great day. Like we all have our bad days. But I would say that for the most part, when people are happy to be at their job, that makes a huge difference on how you feel at your job. Energy is contagious. So when you walk in and everyone's in a really good mood, you're in a really good mood for the most part, unless, you just had a bad day in general. For the most part, you're in a really good mood. If everyone's really happy to be there, you're going to be happy to be there. I've walked in on certain shifts and there are people that first thing they do when they walk in, they are saying how tired they are. They're saying they don't want to be there. Or I've had people that I've worked with where multiple times they've said, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And that is something that makes it a little bit more difficult for me because I do want to be there. I'm really lucky that I have the job that I have. I'm really lucky that I am able to take care of these patients. And that there are some more positive mindsets that you can have on that. But when you're working around people who are unhappy, it's contagious. It makes you unhappy. I have specific people that I love working with because I know that I'm just going to be able to go to my job and I'm going to be able to do my job and we're still going to have a good time. Like we're going to be like, hey, like anyone, I mean, we would all rather be at home, right? Like we would all rather be at home sitting on our couch watching TV and hanging out with our families. I mean, all of us would like that. But it's still one of those things where it's like, okay, I get to walk in and I get to do what I love to do every single day. And if you don't love it anymore, then what can you do to change it? What can you do? Do you need to leave? Leave. Do you need to leave vet med for a short period of time? Do you need to leave just a short period? Do you just need a break?
Break, yeah.
You just need a break to say, I just need to do something else maybe for a little bit. I mean, I'd say most of the time when people leave vet med, they always come back, right? Because it's a calling.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a calling. And if we're meant to do it, we're meant to do it. But it just means that if you feel like it's not right anymore, it just means that you are maybe not doing it the right way. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you're the problem. It just means that maybe you need to have better boundaries. Maybe you need to make sure that you're having more self-care. You're making sure that maybe you need to start going to the gym. Maybe you need to start being more active. Maybe you need to go in and have a massage, and just making that time to spend with family. Because I will say another thing is I remember I used to be so exhausted after my shifts that all I would do on my days off would be sleep. But that wasn't good for my mental health. And
But you
then
don't do that. Now you're hiking and doing on the mountains like every weekend. Like you're out doing stuff. You go to the gym 5 to 7 times a week.
yeah,
You
because it
have it
builds up
now.
my endorphins and it makes me feel good. And to be able to go outside and be in the sunshine, and of course, making sure that I'm just taking care of myself and I'm giving that time to spend with my family and spend with my friends. Those relationships are so important because that's what life is about at the end of the day. It's about your relationships, and that's what's going to keep you fulfilled. Your job is not necessarily going to keep you fulfilled, which is why we can't make it all about our job, which I think is something else that we really struggle with in the vet field is we make it all about our life. And you cannot do that. And if you do that, you're going to be unhappy because you don't have that balance. And of course, people say, oh, work-life balance and blah, 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 blah. And it's just more of making sure that you're making time for other things that are important to you.
I agree. And you do. And you mentioned massage. I get a massage every other week. I do. And I enjoy it. And for that hour I'm up on the table, I feel so dang good. I am not thinking about work. And
It also
you,
helps with how physically demanding our job is.
yeah, I know. I seriously, like when I'm done with my massage, you can throw me against the walls and I'll bounce back like rubber,
Hmm.
and unfortunately the cost is pretty high. But I think to save your body, it's definitely a good investment. But I would also like to add into this, the author of this letter, I personally feel is far removed from the subject at hand. When we're talking about burnout, we're talking about technicians who are online in these forums grumping and griping. When you're a celebrity DVM, I imagine you're so busy with all of other amazing projects. Like this guy's done a lot, so much for our industry that when you go back into a clinic, I'm sure his favorite clients, his long-term clients, the ones that he wants to see are the ones he's seen. I know with myself, as I've gotten busier and busier, I've told myself at my level, if I stop taking on clients, I'm keeping my favorites. I'm keeping my OG clients and I will stay with them for life. And I feel like that might be the level that this individual's at. So he doesn't see the clients screaming at the technicians. He's protected. Like he's probably got a few technicians who circle him at all times to make sure he is happy because of his high profile status. That's so far removed from your technician who is up at the front desk getting yelled at by Mrs. Smith because she just walked in the door and wants a case of CD now and it's not in stock, or she has to have an exam. That's the stuff that a lot of DVMs, let alone well-known public figure DVMs, they don't see that. And I think that's where a lot of the issue came in hand here. And even myself, I'm far removed from the situation. I haven't stepped foot in a clinic since October of 2019. So for myself, I haven't even been in since COVID. So I feel myself, I'm pretty far removed. But when I looked at what another tech had sent me, I felt it in my soul, how she felt. And I think Jen has another, viewpoint on it as well, considering that she is an emergency. She sees it a lot. She's on the floor with you guys. She may own her own business. She may not be hired, but she's still dealing with the clients. She's still seeing the clinic politics. She's still seeing the burnout. She's right there in the pit of the action, but she's not owned by anybody, so she doesn't have to stay. But she still has a beautiful viewpoint on it.
Right. And I mean that's another privilege, right? Is I feel like as a business owner, we have that freedom, right? That we can walk away. And I'm going to sit here and I'll be the first to admit that not everyone feels that they have the freedom to be able to do that. And they do feel stuck and they don't feel like they have a lot of options. And they feel like they can't leave, and maybe they can't leave for certain reasons. But I think that has a lot to do with it too, is people are just trying to make it day by day and they're just trying to pay their bills, and they're doing the best that they can. And a lot of times too, we say that, oh, we should always be happy. You should always be grateful. You should always be thankful. But that's not real life, and that's not being a human being. It's okay for us to have negative feelings. It's okay for you to feel sad. It's okay for you to be upset. It's okay for you to be angry. It's okay to have a bad day, and it's okay to be like, you know what, today sucks. But it's also really important to realize that if you feel like you're in the pit and you feel like you can't get out and you really feel so sad and so depressed and so full of anxiety. That's why we're here and that's why we're doing this podcast, because we want you to know that there are options and there are people who want to help you and who
Yes.
we want to mentor. We want to be able to give you just some sort of way out in this. And if you think that you can't do it because of X, Y, and Z, that's not necessarily true. And that's why we're here. We just want people to know that you can be happy in vet med, because we did it. Because I wasn't
No.
because I wasn't happy in vet med for a really long time. But I honestly didn't realize that I wasn't happy. I had to go through a period of time where I was really angry all the time, and that manifests sometimes as snapping at clients or like when we talk shit about clients and we say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe the client doesn't know what a pyometra is." Like, come on, that's like, how is that fair?
Yeah. True.
Like,
Yeah.
or, I think like, or we bash clients when they say, "Oh, well, I can't believe they didn't get their dog spayed and now it has a pyometra and this is their fault." And it's like, they don't know. That's not something that they know about. Like, there are so many things that we know and then we blame the clients, and that's not being sympathetic. And that can show off as burnout sometimes when we're not being empathetic to the clients and we're not being empathetic to the patients. If we're losing patience with our patients, not remembering that they have no idea what is going to happen to them. They don't speak our language. We shove them into these clinics that have a weird smell. There's anxiety, and of course the animals feel our energy. And for the most part, most of us are not happy, or we're full of anxiety, or we're worried about this and we're worried about that. The animals feel that energy. We have to think about those things. But sometimes we get in this zombie mode, and we don't really realize how unhappy we are until you really hit that rock bottom where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I need to do something else. So, but there are things that we can change. And I think that there's a lot of resources out there where they tell us what we can do to change them, but we have to do them.
Absolutely. We have to take the step within ourselves first. I think one of the first things we need to do is self-reflect and see if there's any common denominator. It may take a while for you to notice, man, I'm always feeling like this at this clinic, this clinic, this clinic, and it's a repetitive pattern because I've been there. I think it takes a lot to realize, hey, I'm burning out. I need to take a break. And yes, me and Jen, in a sense, escape that. And what we're not trying to do is say, leave and do this, because we want technicians to stay in the industry, maybe just not within a clinic. If you've been in the clinic for too long and you're feeling it, like Jen said, take a break. But also at the same time, most of us are paycheck to paycheck. So taking a break, it's hard. And sometimes we get pushed out of the nest with a break, and that's okay too. And then you find yourself spiraling. And in this whole conversation, to bring it back to one bad apple can ruin the bunch, I experienced that at a clinic about 13 years ago now. We had a very small clinic, one doctor, maybe 5 employees altogether. We got a new employee in, and she was, to be short, a hypochondriac. She was a negative Nancy. Everybody was out to get her. It was always, oh, woe me, every day. She always had a sob story. I was one of the first people to say, I can't stand her. Like, I was pretty honest. And I remember we went to a conference. A lot of the girls within this team, we all went to a conference together. And there was a slideshow or a presentation about burnout. And the presenter said it takes one bad apple. And I remember me and 3 other girls from the clinic all looked at each other because we knew who that bad apple was. And then come to find out, after I had left for another clinic for a little bit more money and a better schedule, I found out that she actually stole all the damn tramadol, like an 800 count bottle of tramadol from the pharmacy. And after that, the practice manager had put in some cameras, because I went back to work for the company who bought out that little clinic in a full circle thing. And the new office manager told me about that. She was like, yeah. And I was like, I remember her. Yes. So, and we had a really nice little team in place before we had that one bad apple come in and stress out the entire clinic. Like, that's why I left. A couple other girls left not too long after that. But to hear that after everything went down, that she had probably a drug problem, looking back. I mean, who else deals 800 pills of tramadol? And again, it's that one bad apple. So you really have to take these situations and look at it, make sure you're not the bad apple, because I've been the bad apple. I'm sure, Jen, you've been the bad. We've all been that bad apple at
Oh,
one
yeah.
point.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
I've had people treat me horribly in this field. I've had people lie about me. I've had people bully me. But I can also say that I can think of some instances where I could have been better or I could have done better as well. So, yeah, I mean, I've been self-accountable before for
Yep.
a lot of things. And I remember there was a time where I basically finally had a conversation with a receptionist at a clinic that I was working at because I was hearing behind my back people were like, she doesn't like you, she says that you're mean and that she thinks that you don't like her. And I did have certain thoughts, but I wasn't being fair. And I finally had a conversation with her where I was like, hey, let's hash this out. Like, let's have a conversation like adults. And she told me, she's like, when you talk to me sometimes, you talk to me like I'm stupid. And it makes me feel like I'm stupid. And I was like, whoa, I had no idea. And I told her that. I said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. How can I communicate better to you when I speak to you? How would you like me to communicate with you? How would you like me to talk to you? And we talked back and forth. And even to this day, like, I don't even work at that clinic anymore. And she talks about me positively all the time
Oh,
now
nice.
to other like technicians where she's like, oh, I miss Jen so much. I loved when, when she worked here, she busted her ass and like she was such a good technician. And I mean, I've always just heard like people are like, oh my gosh, she talks about you all the time and how much she misses you. So yeah, I mean, we all just need, if we're not getting along with somebody, maybe we need to have those conversations, but be open. So when somebody gives you feedback and they tell you, hey, this is a not great thing about what you're doing, or whether, if you're speaking to somebody in a certain tone, or you're not showing up to work and you're not reliable, you can't make excuses for that. You have to sit in it and you have to think about it seriously and say, whoa, okay, now I have to self-reflect and now I have to think about, well, maybe I'm not perfect, because we're not all perfect.
No, we're not. And it begins right there. Self-reflection and an open and honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel you're in a clinic where you're being bullied, where it's a toxic environment, if there's one particular individual, before you go to management, before you talk to your coworkers, maybe talk to that person, just like what Jen did with her coworker. They hashed it out, they figured it out, and now there became a positive relationship from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that right there is a prime example of, let's not go to our coworkers and vent to them. Let's not go to office management and bring them in, because God knows what management's going to do, right? They're going to do it in the best interest of the company, not for the
Right.
employees.
Right.
So I would, looking back at sometimes I've had inter-clinic confrontations with other techs.
Yeah.
I wish I would have gone back a few times to that individual and been like, what are you feeling? What can I do? What's going on? Let's talk about this, because at the end of the day, we're coworkers. We got to get through this shit show together. Like, let's figure this out. Because I think what Jen did and her coworker did is great. I can't recall a time where I took those steps, but also it took me a few years to be more self-aware than what I was 10 years ago when I was more emotionally invested into a clinic. So with that being said, I also feel that those community groups within the article that were questioned, I feel like it could be a really good third-party source for people to go in there anonymously and say, hey, this is what's going on, X, Y, and Z. I need feedback. Could it be me?
Yeah.
Could it be them? Because there's where you're going to get some raw, unbiased, emotional support from your peers that don't have any skin in the game. So they're
Right.
super important to have them, but it's also super important to know that a lot of times you are going to bring in the energy that you're feeling. I was having a great day on Sunday. I just celebrated my business being unofficially open for 4 years.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. My husband took me out to get those viral fruit pastries over TikTok. I was having a good old day. We came home And he was like, hey, come upstairs, look at this. And keep in mind, I was in a great mood. I was like, yeah, whatever you want to look at, I'll look at. He's like, look out the window. And there it is, a big ass hawk that was eating a baby fucking bunny
Oh
on our
no.
porch
Oh my
that night. Yeah,
gosh.
it was it was last night. It was Sunday. It was last night. And that killed my
Yeah.
day. That ruined my good day. And
Mhm.
Alex didn't know it. My husband, he did not know that was gonna like ruin my day. But I let that moment ruin my day. And I don't know if I'm gonna get that sight out of my head anytime soon. Um, but also nature is not beautiful. There is a circle of life. I had to tell myself that. So I tried telling myself, Michelle, this is nature. This is a circle of life. Like the hawks got to eat like we got to eat. Did I want to see it on my front porch on display? No. So I had to put myself from that positive mindset of, yeah, just have my fruit pastries. What a great day. It's Sunday. It's a beautiful day. To, oh shit, there's a hawk eating a baby bunny. And bunnies are like my favorite animals. Back to, okay, let's try to get this, level out, Michelle, take down your emotions. This is a circle of life versus festering on it and affecting the rest of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like circling back to, what we had talked about before also of when we're hearing this perspective from a doctor and we're veterinary technicians, we are not walking the same path. And I think that's pretty obvious. We're not walking the same path at all. Things are very, very different for vet techs in so many ways. When you're a DVM, like, this is your career. This is it. And you have to do whatever you can to keep making sure that this is your career. And there's a lot because vet techs don't have to be licensed in certain states. There's some wishy-washiness sometimes of, well, this could be my career, but maybe not. And I think with that being said, we just don't have that standard. And since we don't have that standard, we don't have the payment that we deserve. And we're dealing with all of the horrible things that doctors have to deal with way less pay.
Mm-hmm.
And
less
and we have a
recognition.
lot, and we do a lot more. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt about it. Like, we do
Yes, girl.
so much more. Sometimes I'm doing 5 different things. I have different doctors that are asking me, hey, Jen, can you do this? Hey, can you go read this blood smear? Hey, can you place this IV catheter? Hey, this dog needs to be hospitalized. I mean, I remember one time a couple of years ago, I started crying in the middle of my shift on the treatment floor because I was feeling so overwhelmed and we were really short-staffed and I was behind on my hospital treatments and I had a doctor come up and tell me that another patient was going to be hospitalized. And I said, okay. But in my back of my head, I'm like, okay, well, I have all these I'm behind on all my hospital treatments. So I need to get these guys taken care of first, and then I can hospitalize that patient. I didn't get the patient hospitalized within the amount of time that I would have liked. Then I find out that we're taking the dog to surgery and the doctor had wanted him to be on a bolus of fluids for a certain period of time before he was in surgery. That I didn't know. So my doctor was really upset. And she had said things, and I thought that maybe she meant them towards me. And I remember just sitting there, and I'm placing the IV catheter in this dog, and I just start crying while I'm placing the IV catheter in this dog. Because in my head, I was like, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm busting my ass, and I'm getting treated like I'm not doing enough by the doctor.
But you were. You were doing everything that was asked for, and you were doing 5 times the amount of work.
Right. So, I mean, that's just an example that I can remember of just with how I feel and what we get asked to do. And I'm going to say, I mean, that doctor, when I started to cry, she immediately apologized. And she was like, oh my gosh, I did not mean to make you cry. And that is not how I meant it. I know I'm because she was frustrated too. I mean, she's frustrated and she had every right to be frustrated, but that was also miscommunication, right? Because I didn't know those things and I didn't tell her. And even when she told me it needed to be hospitalized, I just said, okay. But in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, I'll do that when I get to it, but I have to do all these other patients first. I didn't communicate that. So all I said was, okay. So that just shows you miscommunication right there and how important communication is as well. But she did apologize and she felt so bad. But I mean, I think there's just such a big difference between DVMs and veterinary technicians and vet assistants and CSRs, and our burnout is different. Our perspectives are different. Our perspectives on the treatment floor are different. I mean, just look at the way clients treat DVMs when they walk into a room. Sometimes they just worship the ground that they walk on, whereas right before they were just telling the technician, because the technician's just trying to ask them basic questions, and they're like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the doctor.
Yeah,
I don't want
I've
to talk
had
to
that.
you. Or you're like, okay, well, but I need to get a history. Well, why? If the doctor's just going to ask me anyway. Why? This is a waste of time. And it's just like, we just do not get the same respect.
Mm-mm. No, we don't, absolutely. And I had a client do that to me one time at that very same clinic. It was a client who I was trying to talk to her. She found a stray cat. I'll never forget it. We were trying to talk to her about doing a feline retro test. I believe it was FIV, FELV, because we have no history. And she was like, I want Dr. So-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to ask these questions or else Dr. So-and-so is going to jump down my ass if I don't ask you these questions. And she insisted on only talking to the doctor. And I just, and I went to my doc, who was totally understanding. I'm like, this client in room 1 is a nut job. You can deal with her. She doesn't want to talk to me. She's all yours, doc. Go right on in. And my doc was just like, yeah, because that was a really cool doc I worked for. And she was like, yep, I get it. And she went in there and handled it. And, you know, the client, I'm not going to lie, I side-eyed the client. I have a tendency to side-eye stuff. And I remember I side-eyed her. I'm like, whatever. But I still remember it 13 years later when a client didn't want to talk to me, but then she wanted to talk to the doctor about a test, a freaking blood test.
Well, and the DVMs, not all of them, but some of them allow the clients to treat us that way too. They don't correct the clients. They don't correct them, and they just allow them to treat us that way. I mean, where you could have a DVM walk in and be like, hey, my technician is going to ask you their questions. Let my technician do their job, or else you need to leave, or else you need to go somewhere else. And we accommodate that behavior. And when we work in those clinics where the DVM is not backing up their technical staff, when they don't back them up, that makes us feel 100 times worse, because we have a relationship with you. You see us every day, and then you blatantly just allow us to get treated like this just because, what, for a buck? Or because you don't want to upset a client, because you don't want a bad review? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I have worked for a veterinarian. The majority of veterinarians that I've worked for, I'm going to say in general practice, they, for the most part, will let clients treat you however, and they'll just say, oh, well, that's just how they are, and blatantly disrespect you. I've seen a receptionist get cussed out, and the owner of the business still kept them as a client and apologized to them.
So that burns my cookies.
But I've also worked for a clinic where at any time, if the client is rude to her technical staff, she'll tell them to get out. I've literally heard her be like, get the fuck out. Like, get out. You do not treat my staff that way. Like, absolutely not. I remember one time I had a lady that I was trying to get checked out, and she was screaming at another client because their dogs had been in a dog fight, and she thought she was in the right. She wasn't. She thought she was in the right, and she was screaming at the other lady in the lobby. And I looked at her and I was like, you need to stop. This is not okay behavior. You cannot treat her this way. You can't just be yelling at her. And she was saying, well, don't you agree with me? And I said, no, as a matter of fact, I don't agree with you. If you really want to know, I don't agree with you. You are in the wrong. So then she started screaming at me. So then she started like physically she looked like she was going to put her hands on the other client. And that's when I finally just was like, you need to get out. And I just started yelling. I was like, you need to leave. You need to go. And she's screaming at me in the lobby, and she's like, you can't make me leave. And then my boss, the owner of the facility, came out into the lobby, had no idea what was going on, just said, get the fuck out of here. You need to leave. Just get out. And then so she's like, we will call the cops if you do not leave. And the owner, she's a very tall woman. Gorgeous, but she's tall and she can be scary. And so, and she left. And then when we went into the back, she goes, what was that all about? Why was she so mad? Like, tell us, Jen, what happened? Because she knew that I wasn't going to act that way towards a client unless there was reason, because she completely trusted me and she trusted my instincts. And if she's like, oh, well, if Jen thinks that this person needs to get out, then I'm gonna back her up, and I'm gonna tell her she needs to get out. And she had no idea. She didn't even know what was going on.
I love that. That doctor, Oh, can I just say, like, if I ever had a chance to like give that doctor a handshake, I would absolutely do that for that move alone.
Yeah, she's one
I
of the best bosses I've ever, ever, ever had.
did I ever tell you I was physically assaulted by a client?
No, but I
No.
have too. So,
You
but yeah,
have
no,
too?
yeah, I have. But yeah, no, I did not hear that.
Yeah,
I've
it
not
was the
heard
whole
that story.
reason. It was like actually a good catalyst for my reason to leave my last clinic is and I'll admit I don't scruff anymore, but we had a fractious cat. I would say 3 out of 5 FAS, maybe 4 out of 5. And I had just walked in for the day, and my doctor, who is probably in her 70s at the time, was like, "Hey, Michelle, can you do a lateral restraint on this cat while I give vaccines in the room in front of the owner?" Sure, no problem. At that time, that's what was our practice was doing. Nothing new. The owner was probably also in his 70s as well, was a male. And I'm stretching the cat, and I'm just doing the scruff and the stretch. The cat's, the cat's pretty upset, and it's starting to hiss. And I know if I let this cat go, it's going to turn around and bite my doctor or
Yeah.
myself. I knew. So I'm like, I'm holding on to this cat until we're done with like the 2 injections. The male owner's like, "Stop holding my cats." And I'm like, "Sir, I can't. If I do, it's going to bite somebody." And my doctor's just quietly trying to inject everything she can. So he took my wrist, removed it off of his cat, and twisted around my back to the point where I had marks on my wrist. Oh my God. I stepped out of that exam room and I was pretty upset by it. Did it hurt
Yeah.
that much? No. But did it leave marks on my hand? And was I upset? Yes. But here's the part that got me. And this was one of the reasons why I started looking for a new job. My doctor had come out of the room right afterwards and said, "Michelle, he has had a closed head injury before." I'm like, that does not warrant him putting his hands on me, doc.
No.
And I was very upset about that because my doctor cared more about his feelings than
Mm-hmm.
mine. That's how I
Yeah.
felt.
When you're
And she
sitting
was
there
like,
trying to
"Michelle,"
protect her, like you're doing
yeah,
your job and you're trying to protect her.
exactly. Because I mean, again, she was older. She has thin skin too. And I knew this cat is, if I let go, somebody was going to get injured. So I was not going to let go until I believe 3 pokes were done, whatever, how many we were giving. And then for the rest of the day, they're like, "Michelle, why don't you just kind of take the rest of the day and go?" Like, I think they wanted me to check expired food at that time upstairs where we stored it all just to get me like away from everything. And I remember I went outside. I took like 10 minutes to cool off, but I was pissed. And then I go back and they put a note on there, "No Michelle for Fluffy." And I was pissed. I was so mad. I'm like, no. And after that, I think I went home. I talked to my boyfriend, now husband at the time. And that's when I kind of started looking for a new job because I felt my doctor, who, like you said, I was trying to protect from getting bit by this cat that looking back should have been sedated. I was trying to protect her. And then I kind of got punished for it. And that client got validated. I'm like,
Yep.
well, that doesn't excuse it. I think if this client has a closed head injury and he's going to be this unhinged, maybe we shouldn't see him here. There's other clinics in the area that can see him. We're not the only clinic. There's like 5 on every block down here. So, yeah, but my DVM didn't have my back. And I feel like a lot of this comes from DVMs having our backs at the end of the day,
Right.
whether it's in the clinic, online, in the chat rooms. Our DVMs need to have our backs.
Yeah. I mean, because we sure as hell have theirs. We're the
Yeah.
ones that are sitting there. We're supposed to be protecting them, making sure that they don't get bit. We're the ones that, I mean, a lot of times too, like I've had situations where the clients want to talk to the doctor and the doctors are like, "Ugh, I don't have the time and I really don't want to talk to the client. Can't you just do it?" And it's like, okay, sure. Like we'll do this. Like we're going to do you this solid. We're going to do you this favor. And we always have our doctor's backs. Why can't they do the same for us?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
if anybody badmouths my doctors, I'm going to be right there to correct them. But if a client's going to badmouth me, is my doctor going to correct them? Is my doctor going to say anything? So
Good point.
I think that is also something where, again, if you have a DVM that's writing this article, okay, you don't see our perspective. You don't get it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I think it was, I'm not going to say it wasn't made with good intent because I know that this certain individual is a very positive mindset individual, which we need more of that in this field. We absolutely do. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it was spoken out of context or anything like that. I mean, I think that it was a valid point and it was a specific perspective from this person, and a dialogue was created from it. And maybe it needed to be talked about. And I think that that's what we need to do more of, is let's have opinions and let's talk about them. And if it upsets other people, then let's have an open dialogue about it. Let's talk about it. And let's see if we can figure out how to make vet med better instead of pushing things under the rug when people get upset.
Well put. Well put. I couldn't agree with that anymore. And I think everything that we just discussed here is a tribute to that, the tech-doctor relationship, and how we need to all work together. Even if we have different perspectives, we're all still one team.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Well, I hope that we maybe opened some people's minds a little bit, maybe talked about perspectives that other people wouldn't have necessarily thought about. We would love to hear your guys' opinion on what we discussed. And if, we can always bring another bonus episode kind of back to, if you guys have anything to say, then we can discuss that as well. So
hell yeah, we're always here to spill the tea. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We want it. We're into it. Yeah, we want to know. So yes, thank you to the person who sent this to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you, dear, for sending this to me and bringing it to my attention, because me and Jen, after I read it and sent it to her, we both agreed that this needs to be talked about. So yes, we want to continue to hear back from you guys of anything that's going on in the industry, and hopefully we can all bring our ideas together and start working together forward.
Absolutely. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found some valuable insights. If you did, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave us a review and let us know what you think. You can also connect with us on all social media platforms at Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a positive impact in the veterinary world. We need you guys. Have a great day.